this as an introduction, is virtual fencing right for your operation? We'd been at a trade show and didn't feel like we had the right amount of time to spend with producers, and it has kind of morphed into a bigger conversation than we expected, which is great, and we're here for it. So we kind of just put some expectations that we wanted to deliver, but as always, this is going to be an interactive. If you're on and you want to put anything in the chat, go for it. And we will be answering questions at the end. Kathy will be monitoring that for me. So welcome. Just a note, this webinar is being recorded right now for future use. And if you have any questions while I'm presenting, I might not be able to see them. We will be monitoring them and have lots of time at the end to make sure we have your questions answered. So if you just kind of stumbled across us at either at Agribition or on social media and you're wondering like, who the heck is FenceFast? So I'm Leanne Smith and I'm a Saskatchewan girl. FenceFast is a BC-based company with a Saskatchewan warehouse. We do sell across Canada, but our ties are deeply in Western Canada. My partner and our heartbeat of FenceFast, Axel, he is from BC. And we make up the key personnel for East Shepherd. And Kathy that's on here, she's our communication person. So she's been my right-hand person and doing all the emails and will be another source of contact for you for more questions from this event. And then we have a partner agrologist in BC, Michelle Schaefer, who is with Whiskey Creek Ranch out of Fort St. John. So I know this is why you're here. Like, what is virtual fencing? So for me, virtual fencing puts you in control of your cattle without all the heavy lifting, the wire, the moving of the fence, and it puts it all right in the palm of your hand. It helps you unlock precision, rotational grazing potential better and easier than ever before. Better use of labor and free time. And it changes your focus from getting out on the landscape to move the fence to maybe getting out on the landscape and checking your cows or the grass. Manage your herd remotely 24/7. So really you have your eyes more on your cattle, or wherever you can log in and give you flexibility from your app or your computer at any time that you see. And fence in tough terrain, whether you are dealing with a mountain landscape, maybe we just have some more people. I'm just going to admit here. There. So whether you're fencing, in a mountainous range situation, maybe in BC, or if you are, just have scrub brush or buckbrush or just trees, and you never thought either from, the financial capacity or the time you'd be able to rotational graze, this is opening, a game changer. And protect sensitive environmental areas. This was really an aha for me. I didn't think it was intuitive when I really heard about virtual fencing first. If you are trying to maintain a waterway, restrict access to rivers, streams, protect area, for example, that a wildfire has gone through, or maybe even a species at risk. You have the ability to either not include that or exclude an area within a virtual paddock. So why choose Gallagher East Shepherd? So I always say that is a real personal decision for you, but I can share why FenceFast did that. So one, Gallagher has a legacy of innovation. Fencing is in their DNA. For some of you, you might not know, but Gallagher did invent electric fencing in New Zealand. Sir Bill Gallagher did that over 80 years ago. And they have, developed a brand that is full of integrity. They have in-country product support and operations, and they have done that so proudly, operating in Canada for more than 30 years, which is something that was very important to us personally and corporately. And then lastly, we have a trusted business relationship with Gallagher since 1999. So Axel started being a dealer personally, then evolved into AB Custom Fencing, and now for more than 10 years, FenceFast has been a dealer. So when we went in February to Texas to really have an open discussion with all the players in the virtual fence market, we met with all of them. This is us with the CEO of Gallagher New Zealand Animal Management and the director of the Americas. And we sat down, had a business meeting, decided how we could incorporate, how we as FenceFast, how it would look. And we left, and Axel said to me, if anyone can make virtual fencing work in Canada, I think it's Gallagher. And I was like, that's exactly it. And things have popped up, and we will talk more with one of our customer testimonials soon. That really, yeah, they are in the business to make things work and protect their name. Okay, so how does it work? Really, it's a four-pillared approach: GPS-enabled neckbands, virtual fences, behavioral cues, and remote monitoring and management. So the GPS-enabled neckbands are solar-powered, and they track their location in real time. The virtual fences, the digital boundaries, one thing that has stuck out for me consistently through users are people saying that really it has changed the way they've looked at a paddock, at a pasture, at a range, and seen things in ways that they never dreamt they'd be able to manage, and now they are. So really, the more you can put into the app, into the interface, for example, like your physical fences, your water sources, the more you will get out and the more benefit you can create. Thirdly is behavioral cues. So this is the actual how it looks. When cattle approach the virtual fence, the neckband will emit a series of audio cues, beeps, so you can hear it. If you were standing there, other animals can hear it as a warning. And then if the animal continues and breaches, so if they're even like their head goes through and not their whole body, they would get a mild pulse. And the fourth pillar is remote monitoring and management. It's the ability to, use your phone app, a computer to manage your herd from anywhere. You can create groups. Each of these little icons here on the right, each of these colors are animals. This producer created 3 different herds, and then you can see the different paddocks and scheduled moves. So it really takes it as deep as you want to go. And over time, you can progress. You don't have to jump in all at once. So now, what virtual fencing option is right for you? That's probably really what you're wanting to know. So there's 2 options, either direct to cellular or base stations where coverage is low. So cellular is a quick implementation and a lower overall cost. Then the second option is LoRa base stations for rugged terrain with more limited coverage. And kind of a third option is perhaps if you need the LoRa base stations to have a boost, to have something like a Starlink or a Starlink Mini installed to give that an extra boost. And this is the number one question we get. Would cellular collars work for me? So a general rule is if you can send or receive a text, or if you have 1 bar of service, a cellular collar could be your solution. Every network provider, so everywhere that has phone service, will have a coverage map. So that is an LTE-M coverage. So I know that Kathy's going to drop some of these links into our chat. I didn't even know this existed until I started doing this. But then, so that would be the second level, because it's a multi-tiered approach. So then you kind of think, okay, yeah, I can usually get a text, receive a text. Let's look and see at the coverage map. So then the third is to do an actual walk test to target weaker cell zone areas. So what that looks like is you actually get a collar, have it, have a charge, have it ready to go, have it connected to an app, and then you would take it out to a weaker spot that you're concerned about. For example, a deeper ravine or a valley, or just something with more canopy of trees, and wait 15 to 20 minutes and give it time to cycle at least, and then you'll get a good idea. But also at the back end, when Gallagher's looking later, they will know where you came in and out of service and give you better recommendations. And one thing I should say is, because the collars are a sealed unit, they are not transferable. So if you buy cellular collars, they are cellular collars. If you buy ones for LoRa base stations, they are for base stations. And then if you're like, no, 100%, I know this isn't me. I'm out in the, in the back terrain. Cellular is not an option. Then we would have a base station assessment, and that's more done on an individual basis and one-on-one. So you could reach out to us to discuss further. And so we did include current pricing of the 2 different types. It is tiered depending on the volume of your collars. The base station I have put as $5,000 to $6,000. How that works is 1 base station is $6,000. Subsequent, so 2 and up, are at $5,000. And then your usage per collar, per month of usage, per 30 days, per month, I guess is a better way to say it, is then either $250 or $2, and that can be shut off. So if you are, they call it hibernating for, like right now, you're like, okay, they're off, I won't be putting them on again until March, then you would not be paying for your software subscription. So now this is a testimonial from Jody Stump from Crystal Lake Ranch. Some of you might know Stump Warner. He is the BC Cattlemen's current president. And I thought this was like a really good summary of not just their experience, but for a lot of people in BC, that we found that Gallagher's East Shepherd virtual fencing system was effective at holding livestock in assigned pastures and for monitoring livestock in most scenarios. Virtual fencing has great potential and will be a valuable livestock management tool for our operation moving forward. Producers should be aware that BC offers unique constraints and challenges not necessarily encountered by Gallagher's current East Shepherd virtual fencing system, including rugged terrain and areas with limited or no cellular service. These challenges represent opportunities for improvement within the team, and we look forward to the solutions they will be working on to deal with the constraints in BC. and not just BC. We learned some constraints maybe they have in Canada, period. And we'll just talk about that, about the evolution. And like that's really summarizes a lot of it, is that it has great potential, and just some thought into what it can do for you, what it can do for your specific needs, wants, and location really can help set you up for making a really good decision for your own operation. And now, to get to the actual, like the stories, like how it's working, what people are doing with it, we have our guest speaker here. So Keegan Miller is a cow-calf producer. He's a territory manager at Covers & Co. He lives in near Bonnyville, Alberta. He's an early adopter, a number cruncher, a grazing guru, and him and I have been going back and forth about some things that we've been encountering, from my visit to Fort St. John to his time on his property in kind of northern Alberta. So we are very happy and grateful to have Keegan here and share his real life use of eShepherd.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so as Leanne said, my name is Keegan Miller. My wife and I are a small cow-calf operator near Bonnyville, Alberta. We've been rotationally grazing traditionally for the last 3 years. It's done a lot for our operation. We've found significant value in starting to do more intensive rotational grazing systems. And one of the things that came up was the collars, and we had a neighbor that was even an earlier adopter, and he had some extra collars that we were able to bring in and trial out this year in the fall here to get them on our place. And we're going to be definitely we're in talks right now of getting the rest of our collars ordered to get things collared for the whole herd for next year. Because what we found and what I saw firsthand with my neighbor Nick Kunick, what he was able to accomplish, it was pretty remarkable. And there's some limitations to physical fencing that virtual fencing does away with, that we can talk about and I can go through. So I'm not sure really where you want me to start, Leanne, but
Why don't you start with, like, I think how what you showed us about your paddock, like how the interface works,
sure.
how it
Yeah.
looks. Let's go with that because I think
Okay,
that would be great.
okay, let's start there. Are you guys able to see that screen?
Mm, No,
No, not yet. How about now?
it's coming. There we go.
There we go. All right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, right now we only have 3 collars. So I don't want anyone to diminish that too much with herd size, because we've been really taking those 3 collars and putting it through their paces in terms of the functionality of the system, to decide if it's something that we wanted to do on the herd size. So this is an example of some of the things that you can do. So right now we've got the 3 cows. They're each in their individual herds. So I'm able to take, and all these white boundaries that you see, those are all our physical fences. We've got a watering point up here. This is the desktop version. To the right here, this is what the mobile app looks like. So you're able to pull it up in the field. You're able to pull information of individual cows, see where they're at, what their status is, all within the mobile app, which is really nice. You can also add virtual paddocks. You can add water points, your physical fences. It's easiest actually to add from the mobile app, because you can go and walk your fence with your phone in your hand. Just put pins and build your physical fence. And then I like building my virtual fences here on the desktop version. So one of the things, just to kind of show you guys, so right now, just before the webinar, all of our cows right now are in paddock. They're in dry lot. So up the next to the house, 2 of them are my wife's milk cows, so they're in a pen with some calves. This is a heifer that's off by herself, but they're not truly using the virtual fencing right now. They will be in another couple weeks when we move some stuff. But right now, each one of these animals is in their own pasture. So essentially, this one here, Ruby, this is where she can go, all the outside boundaries, as well as that piece here. Lady, my wife's dairy cow, she can come here, And then this is an important piece, this circle here, the center, that's super useful. So this is an exclusion zone. So these are inclusions on the outside. This is exclusion on the in the middle. That's if you've got something that you want to bar them from. So in this case, I had a bunch of bales that I'd hauled home and I stacked right here, and I obviously didn't want them to get into my bales. So I threw up an exclusion zone around the bales, and they grazed right up to it. We collared these three on September 24th. They came right up to it, but they couldn't cross the boundary. They couldn't go into the bales. So that's kind of the user interface. This is our some of our summer pastures that I've kind of just started mapping out what our virtual paddocks are going to be for the whole herd this year. So I kind of just wanted to quickly show how easy it is to build a paddock. So you basically it's all copy and paste. You have your fundamental shape and your access to your waterways, and it's just a copy and paste. So I come down here, click it, it's copy. That one's now copied. I'm just going to drag it up, go to my new area, and save. And so I just create another 2.5 acre paddock. So then when you start getting into your rotations and your schedules, being able to build it, you can do it for individual herds, you can do it for all herds. It's super easy. You just select your herds, select the virtual paddock that you want to start at. So I'll say I'll start there. We're gonna go until we'll go for either days or hours. You select that, and then you just click add another one. And this list, just as they start getting scheduled, it just disappears, the ones that are already scheduled. So that list just gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And you can work through, like, basically if these were daily moves, I've got over a month's worth of grazing roughly. And I think it took me about half an hour or so on the computer to build all these out, which was pretty cool. Then I'll show you. So another question I get asked lots is how the training period works. So Gallagher, I think, suggests doing about a week or 4 days, 5 days, something like that of training. So this was the 24 hours after initial fitment on our herd. So this is one of the functions, one of the features here within the system where actually you can go and you can click an individual cow, a group of cows, whatever you want to do, and you can go tracks, and then you can see their movement over a certain period of time, and you can set that, and it'll tell you if they've been shocked or anything. So that's what this is. Each of these orange boxes, this is when they received an actual electrical pulse. So first 24 hours, fairly significant. They received a lot of shocks. They didn't know what the fences were. You can see some lines crossing over my exclusion zone. Those are just GPS. They started here, they walked around, they ended there. The GPS threw a line up, but they didn't actually go into this. It's kind of cool though, because 24 hours and then 24 hours later, this is what we were looking at. So they actually kind of slowed down. It seems like they kind of just they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was around their neck. You can see a couple audible cues, but no actual shocks in this. And then by 72 hours with the collars on, they were back to normal movements, but you can see there was only one individual shock. And you can see now they're starting to really go against some lines, test some lines, figure out where everything is. The orange in this it doesn't line up to what my virtual paddocks were at that time. They were different, so that's why they don't all line up along this. Some of them are the same, but it's amazing at how fast the cows actually train and start to respond appropriately to the stimuli. Um, I said I wasn't going to play a video, but I got one little short video that we'll just try here and see, because this was the day that I put this collar on this bull, and I just walked up to him here. I'm not sure how well that's playing, but I'm just kind of trying to coax him to go up into the pasture. You can hear the audio beep. He doesn't know what to do. He takes another step forward and he gets that correction and backs off. And this was within this first 24 hours that I showed on the tracks. And it was amazing at how fast they learned, and they didn't push the boundaries. Um, they figure out really quick where their fence is and where it isn't. Even moving it every couple of days like I was. We have our dairy cows are pretty calm. We know they come home every day for getting milked. So we actually let them go out right out onto our driveway. So this is not fenced. There's no fences anywhere. This is all grass that always grows, and I got to mow, and there's rocks and stuff. And I thought, well, we've got the collars, why not just try it? So we kicked them out. We kicked the two dairy cows out there, but obviously we still wanted them to have access to the bull for breeding purposes. So we kind of had to figure out what we were going to do there. And basically, we just kind of we used the herds feature, and we were able to make it so that the bull had a different line than the cows did. So this gate is the bull line. This is where he can go up to, and you can see the cows on the other side, and they can walk down here, which is where that picture was taken. Over here is just around this grain bin. But it's really interesting because this was about 10 days after initial fitment, and I couldn't coax him into an audible sound. I tried grain, I tried shushing him and moving him physically. He knew exactly where that line was and just turned around and walked back when I put some pressure on him. He wasn't messing around with that line at all, which was really cool to see. So
I'm just going to like jump in here for 1 minute.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That was very, very beneficial. And I want to just like reiterate what you said to not discount, um, your volume. Because one, people are using this in the same way for bulls, like just like you said, to separate, to make different herds with their herd bulls. And I think that showing the progression of learning and training is really interesting. So thank you for sharing that part.
No problem. Now, for me, and if there's anybody on the webinar that's ever heard me speak before on grazing and cover crops and stuff, it all comes down to economics, though. These aren't cheap. They're not definitely not free. They are an investment into your herd, and they're an investment into your management system. So I do want to take some time and go over some numbers and discuss that, because ultimately we are in this for profitability, and if this doesn't profit and pencil out, there's no point in doing it. So I will say, for myself at least, on what our goals are with our grazing system, the collars make a lot of sense, and I'll show you kind of our numbers and our break even points here in a minute. But this being just a fairly general grazing system, 100 head operation, only grazing during the summer. So this is May 1st to November 1st, 184 days grazing with a daily move, and taking about an hour and a half of daily labor to do that move. And what that includes is basically doorstep to doorstep. So for myself, my herd is pastures approximately 15 clicks, 20 clicks away. I got to get in my truck. I got to drive there. I got to park. I got to start my quad. I go out, pull fence down, put fence up. I can't do it, at least in my system, in less than an hour and a half to do a pasture move. Just that. So I've got a labor rate of $40 an hour for myself, equipment rate of $15 an hour, which is probably low. That includes my pickup, that includes my fuel. And if anybody wants, just shoot me an email. I can send you this. You can plug your own numbers and stuff into it if you want. Basically, for $5,000 to buy some traditional rotational grazing equipment with a useful life of 10 years, you're gonna be at about an 85 cent per day cow cost on a hundred head. If that's all you're doing, you're only moving once a day. It takes you an hour and a half. It may take more, it may take less. Your numbers are going to be your numbers. For this scenario, I've put a useful life of 3 years on the. That's because Gallagher warranties those collars for 3 years. So from the time of purchase, you get 3 years on the useful life. I would say though, like when we start talking lithium ion batteries and the new technology, if you can get 5 years on that, it drops considerably. But this is making the assumption that after the warranty period is up, these collars are going to die and I'm going to have to replace them. Is it still worth doing? With a $2 monthly fee per collar, your yearly cost per head is $146.67. Now, if you're doing labor of a pasture check, let's say every 5 days, you're going to go out and drive that pasture for an hour and a half or so, equivalent to a move, but you're only going to go out there every 5 days or so. your overall yearly labor is only around $3,000 or 17 cents per cow. In this scenario, you are a little bit higher to put collars on cows than you are traditional. Going into my system now though on what we want to go, and this is why I said you have to take evaluation of what your own goals are on how you want to graze. If you're in the prairies and where I'm from, if you're the Columbus type producer where cows go out in the spring and you rediscover them in the fall, this isn't worth it. It's just not. It doesn't pencil out. But for those of you that are wanting to do really intensive management, move multiple times a day, really maximize your forage base, I think the collars can really aid in that. So for this is our system. So I've got 30 head that I'm going to be running this year. I want to graze for 250 days. That includes perennial and annual forages, as well as swath grazing and bale grazing. I want to move 4 times a day is the dream, especially on our perennial forages. For me to do that, I'm at $11 per head per day of labor cost in a traditional sense. Not at all economical. Our current system of rotational grazing, I'm on 4 day moves because it's just that's what makes sense financially for us is doing 4 day moves. I can't justify driving there any more than 4 days. I go there every 4 days for my water. In this case, though, I'm going to move 4 times a day and I'm going to go check every 2 days and check water. It basically works out to a massive amount of savings if I was to do that system in terms of moving every four times a day. My neighbor and good friend, he had him on about 300 head this year, moving 4 times a day. Again, he was doing bale grazing and some additional grazing, so he's got about 250 days of grazing. You can see his labor and equipment costs. It's a full-time job to move those cows physically that often. So for him, it definitely worked out on the 72 cents a day for his cost and his 92 cents a day versus traditional. Now, if that's not your system, that's fine. But for those of us that want to manage our forage really intensively, want to look at additional grazing options, this is a very economical way to reduce overall labor and reduce the stress of finding manpower so you can go to the lake for the weekend. Having that ability to have somebody get out and move your cows the way you want your cows to be moved every few days is pretty tricky. With something like this, you can set up 5, 6 days worth of moves and you can go to the lake for the weekend and not have any stress. You can check it from your phone. You can make sure your cows have been moved. Everything is very, very simple that way.
I really appreciate your openness with your numbers,
Oh, absolutely.
with this like spreadsheet and running through it. Because when the traditional rotational grazing, the biggest thing is either getting started or the time. Like, how am I going to like find the time to do this?
Yeah.
Uh, right. And that just shows the goal is way more attainable with this than, anything else. And I really think the numbers like is a great place to start always
Hmm.
with how to fine tune it. And I also think when you're saying, like about going to the lake for a weekend or we've heard multiple stories too that someone's gotten sick or something's happened or something's popped up unexpectedly. It's very manageable with
Yeah.
this to keep going and nothing has to stop. So that part that's just
Quality
another
quality
huge
of
benefit.
life in agriculture is something that we don't put a whole lot of like dollars and cent value on. But I know for myself, we rotationally graze in the summer, we bale graze in the winter time. We're on like month-long pods and stuff in certain areas now. It's been a game changer for our personal life, and it makes farming fun again, and it makes things a lot easier. And I don't have to burn as much diesel, which I love. So
Yeah. Making farming fun. Like that's not something we hear enough of. Uh, so let's make that like bring that back.
yeah.
Uh, so I think we should just talk about our experience last week.
Yeah.
So I'll start because I didn't even really, I thought it was, I just didn't, I was busy cold and dealing with snow. So I was in Fort St. John with a caller doing walk tests for different locations, different places. So it was not on a cow. It was like being stored at our colleague Michelle's ranch. They had it out earlier than I arrived, and it was like a snowstorm, really big snowstorm, more snow. It dropped very, very cold. Um, and in the time we're like, oh, let's see what happens with this collar. It had been sort of like outside type of thing, not really outside, but in their outdoor space where it was cool, but not out in the elements. We brought it in, and no, the collar was not coming, jumping back to life. Anyway, we were dealing with all the elements of all the things. I was trying to get home, get a flight out of Fort St. John. It was cold, it was storming. And in the middle of that, I get a text and an email from Keegan saying he was having kind of a same situation
Yeah.
with weather, but yours was way more important or like impactful because yours were on cows. So why don't you say what you were experiencing?
Yeah, like this technology is in its infancy, right? And it can't be expected that it's going to be perfection off the hop. And that's why we only collared 3 cows, because for me especially, like, and when you run through those numbers, if I was only going to be doing like summer grazing on perennials and annuals, those numbers are going to be a little harder to justify and a little harder to pencil out for me. I really want to start getting into swath grazing, bale grazing on remote areas, doing other things like that. That I also just really don't want to go out and have to pound posts in the middle of winter and run an energizer. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me, and it's one of the reasons we haven't done it up to this point. So winter component the winter use factor is a huge component, and frankly it's a deal breaker for us on our operation. And one of the things that happened this last week, we hit -30 for a bunch of days. It was overcast for 4 or 5 days. We had no real sunlight. Is I noticed when I logged in, I had cows that were in what Gallagher calls a flat battery state, which basically means the batteries were dead. They were no longer active on a virtual paddock. So immediately got on the horn, texted and emailed you, Leanne, and I emailed the JC with the animal e-shepherd at Gallagher Next. One of the things that the only real disappointment in the whole scenario for me was that at this point, as this webinar is being recorded, there isn't a notification system set up. That is now supposedly, as I've been told, in the pipeline, where they will notify you on your phone, by email, however it's going to happen, when your battery starts approaching that lower level, so that us as producers have that awareness that, okay, they're going to stop getting shocks here right away. I better go do something. Ours didn't really affect because they're all in physical pastures right now, and they're all kind of in pens. So we're just doing a test on them, so it never really hit us. But I had a neighbor who had his bale grazing out there, and he went out to check on his cows, and he had about 75 cows that were into the next part of the bale grazing and couldn't figure out why. And it was because his collars had stopped responding. Now, I've noticed already, just in the last 24 hours, all my batteries are back up to usable status. But it's not without its challenges throughout the winter months, when we had -33 with 45 degree wind chill, and it was bad. So, and it can get a lot worse in certain areas of the world too. So
So, yes. So then once I get back settled, not traveling, and I'm like, not because I can 100% say that 0 stars out of 5 would I give to moving and winding wire
yeah,
in -30 because I've been there. And I was like, okay, like I don't think Gallagher is quite getting this. This is not moving up the chain fast enough because there are alerts for, I want to say inactivity. I don't think that's what they call it,
yeah,
but
it's animal down. So it'll give
animal
you.
down.
And I took a collar off. I had the collar on that black bull, and I took it off to put on a heifer, and I set it on my chute, and I had a text, I think, after 2 hours that the animal hadn't moved.
Right.
So
Okay, so
there
they
is
give you that,
notifications that, and the
and they
system's
give
there.
you an alert, like an escape, if
Hmm.
there's animal pressure.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, so like you and I had talked, Keegan, like what the heck? Like that's what we need to know. Then we make good decisions, right? Which is what this is about, is helping us make better management decisions for our livestock.
Yep.
So yesterday, I had a call with one of the head people in East Shepherd, and when I heard that he hadn't, because I was like, okay, I need an update on this. One, I have a webinar, and two, this is like real life. Like we are out here dealing with this. So then he called, he went through it twice. He's like, I want to make sure I understand. And I'm like, he's like, okay, no, that isn't okay. Like you can't manage what you don't know. And I said, yeah, exactly. So it was definitely the response I wanted from Gallagher to say, one, he heard us, he got it. And within 10 minutes of us being off the phone, he sent me another email saying, okay, I've reached out to tech support within 2 hours and it was late. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I got another email saying, okay, it is in the pipeline for them to look at this. We need battery level alerts for something like this. And I was very happy because that was, back to like that is the our expectation from FenceFest,
Yeah.
from Leanne, of what Gallagher does and how they operate. And I was very happy about that. And I think that will be a very good addition. He did make some other like really interesting, I thought, points about that, is that, because I said we weren't like, it was terrible. It was like, -30 where you were or worse,
Yep.
-30 where I was in Fort St. John. Like I was like, okay, like we're not so much saying we're shocked by this. Yeah, like we want it to work, but we need an alert. And he said, well, it is um, interesting too that they're really kind of figuring out the whole system, obviously. And even like as it hangs around their neck. So if
Hmm.
they're laying, cuddling it, keeping it warm, it's going to protect that battery. Or
Yep.
if they're laying, also it might not get the sun. There's just different layers. So anyway, it is a live and learn. It's definitely still, a challenge. Like it sounded like you and I and your neighbor were the first ones that had really brought this, or definitely to his attention. So yeah, it is still new technology, and Canada, we have learned in multiple ways, has different challenges than New Zealand. So
Yeah.
this might
Well,
not be the
that's one thing. Like I kind of can't speak highly enough about the Gallagher support team and the East Shepherd support team direct from Gallagher, because there's a lot of settings even on the back end of an account with East Shepherd in terms of how often the caller's ping, how much batteries used. There's certain settings that, frankly, in ideal conditions in the middle of July when we have 15 hours of sunlight, you don't need to touch them. They just work. But when we start getting into December and low light conditions and things, like there's optimizations that can be done. So like that was the first thing, like JC from E Shepherd, she was able to get my pings moved from 30 minutes to an hour. And that by the next day that made a difference where my callers were charging better. Like I'm sitting this morning when I was out there, I had two out of the three were in green battery state. I think they're all kind of in low battery right now. We're a little overcast, but they charge back up pretty quick. And because it is so new, like the feedback from producers that are using the product, it's amazing at how fast they're fixing some of these issues. Because let's be honest, we're not in New Zealand, so things that they don't think will be problems are problems for us.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I have had someone say, like to me in a completely different New Zealand conversation, well, if it ever gets to -30, then let's talk about it. I was like, there is no if.
Yeah,
There
it's
is
how
no
many
if.
days this
Yeah,
winter it's going to.
it's
Yeah,
happening. And yeah, I think that's a great thing too, because she did optimize that, like really. And that was like on a
it was
Saturday.
fast. Yeah, yep,
Like it was off hours.
yep.
And yeah, I think that's a really good, point. And that's really where we strive to come into. Like I was I was part of it, helping and supporting. Customer service is very important to me personally. It is very important to Fence Fast, and yeah, we wanted to, like, I was dealing with it, but we always want you to feel supported and have another avenue, right? Like just like yesterday, like we've been around the Gallagher world a long time and know a lot of people, and sometimes the squeaky wheel can get the
The
action.
proverbial grease. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, was there anything else we talked about that we wanted to mention before we open up to questions? Did we touch on all the main things? Um,
I think we did. Like I obviously like we could sit here for hours going through functionality and what you can do, but like one of the things is it where it was a bit of a mind shift for me is how it truly it's a Ferrari type of purchase when you're dealing with a system. And if you don't have your driver's license yet, you should probably not buy a Ferrari. Learn the management systems of rotationally grazing. There's all it does is it makes you a better livestock manager in terms of how you can graze, but it doesn't take away the fundamental aspects of grazing. If you don't have that as kind of a base in your toolbox, I wouldn't push somebody to look at eShepherd until you figure out how grazing can work on your land, right? And it also changes a little bit because the physical fence barrier isn't there. So you can have intermingle herds. For instance, you can have a yearling group and a cow group that all come to the same water point every day, but yet they graze different areas of the quarter. If you had a lowland with better grass, you could have your yearlings grazing that lowland, and your cows would never touch it. The other piece of it that I would say is a benefit is if you start looking into rotational grazing or mob grazing, amp grazing, whatever terminology you want to throw at it. There's been a lot of research, one major paper out of Australia, one out of Colorado State, that show that that overall pound gain on calves is overall less in a rotational grazing system. I have the argument then I can stock more animals, so then your pounds per acre is more. But let's say that's not the case. With virtual fencing, you're not collaring your calves. Your calves are not collared. So your cows come up to a line and get buzzed and stop. And those calves at the peak of their growth are venturing into untouched fresh grass. And they only go so far away from the cows. So it makes it really nice to be able to almost creep feed your calves on grass using the collars, because as you're moving your calves are just constantly a few steps ahead of your cows, and they're eating the best possible forages, and they're essentially in not a selective system, and your cows are in a non-selective system, all in the same pasture.
yeah, I think that like idea of like creep feeding um your calves on this is like such an interesting thought. I also agree, like, we have on this call, like SSMPA people who talk and rotational grazing, you who talk rotational grazing. So even if it is someone who's like, right, trying to like get their mind wrapped around it, even just on this, this call, we have people doing the work. And then we have Axel who's like, a rotational grazing. He will talk fencing with people anytime, any day. So if you are, if you're in that world, like I agree, it is something to, get thinking about, because if you just were to jump in without thinking about it, you might feel overwhelmed quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Quick. Um, so like I think that's a great piece of advice. What do you wish you would have known ahead of time? Like what do you wish you would have known? What do you wish that you would have heard before you started or virtual fencing?
Um, well, my wife will tell you I'm fairly I get laser focused on things that interest me, so there's not a whole lot I didn't know about it before I took the dive in myself. Um, obviously there's learnings along the way. Didn't know about the notifications on the batteries, didn't know about this, a couple little things, but nothing was a major concern. Um, there's still things that I don't know. For instance, I really want to test I can do cattle drives using the virtual collars. So I've got about I've got one pasture about 3 miles literally straight down the road, but I've got cropland on either side of that road and not a and very few fences. Next summer we will be testing across just my pasture. I'm going to just do a mini mock cattle drive across the pasture and see if the sound is enough to keep those animals contained to that alleyway essentially. That would be the roadway. So I think there's a lot of options, and the creativity of a producer on how they're sitting there managing their system and managing their pastures can unlock a lot. And I don't think we've done it yet. Like a buddy of mine, we were in BC at a regenerative ag conference, and we sat in the hotel room, and I was going through, and I just put my colors on, and he's like, "Well, could you use it to sort?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, you could. Like you've got the ability to move an animal virtually from one paddock group to another, and the fences are one-way doors. It's not like a dog collar where they get a stimuli on both sides of the fence. If the animal walks through the fence for some reason, or let's say the fence moves and they happen to be on the other side of it, they walk back into that fence as if nothing was there. They just walk back in, they get no stimuli, and now they're in a fence. So we got talking. It's like, well, what if I had a purebred herd that I wanted to pull from pasture and a commercial herd that I wanted to keep there? You could literally just build two different areas where each herd will go to, and then you can go and corral them up and load them up and move them out, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point that we didn't touch on about that they can come back.
Yeah,
And yeah, I feel like we're just getting started with what the potential is. And I'm very looking forward to like your cattle drive. I've heard people in Oregon, like I know of them. I haven't been able to like heard them speak, but I don't know them um, to really quiz them. So I'm very interested in your results on that.
yeah. It'll be fun to try. Once I get the whole herd done, um, just I'm literally just gonna make about a 20-30 yard paddock alley across the fence across the pasture, and I'm just gonna run them through to the other side and see if I can keep them in that space. I know they'll do it themselves. They'll find it. I just don't know if having a push and a pressure on them will be enough to keep them in that, like with that beep. But we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be curious. I'm very curious. Okay, do we have any questions? We should open it up or do we have any questions, Kathy, in the
Nobody's
chat?
asked anything yet.
Oh my gosh.
Quiet group.
Well, you can definitely always like reach back out if you like, because I'm sure, Keegan, your presentation probably got lots of people thinking and open their minds. So or they'll be thinking about your spreadsheet and numbers. So you can always email and we will answer any questions at any point. But
Can I just ask Keegan to get some video of that little experiment he's talking about? I'd love to see how that goes. I'm really
Ab-
curious.
Absolutely, yeah.
How wide do you think you're going to need to make that alleyway?
Um, so like based on the Shepherd, the best I can equate it to is the GPS is similar to the GPS on your phone versus RTK in an ag tractor or something. And actually, here, let me just I got one thing I'll show you guys because it is kind of interesting to show you the accuracy of the GPS. Um, just gotta find it here and see if it'll come up. Sorry. There it is. I'll just share my screen again. Um, so this here is all three of my collars hanging on my deck railing the few days I got them before I picked them up. So you can see, like satellite wise, they thought those collars were in a pretty big area. Like that's my entire house, right? So when we're thinking about this, it isn't as accurate as that line. So I think Gallagher recommends any alleyways be a minimum of 5 meters across is as tight as you'd want to put them. I would probably even go a little bit more than that, because I've seen a couple times when I was playing with different systems where they kind of bounce, right? They move back from one side, and if they're too close to the other side, then they bounce to another, like it's an audible cue at that point, and they kind of get confused, and then they don't really know where to go. So you want them to have that room to kind of bounce off that fence, make the turn, start walking in a different direction, and get another cue after they've kind of made that physical movement, which seems to, so I would say probably 10 meters across. For me, I think ditch to ditch on a roadway is going to be plenty fine for it. So
I have heard that they need like it can be a meter either way of play room, right?
yeah.
So yeah, that's a great question, Julia. Yeah, I can't wait. When are you planning on doing this? Are you gonna like, can we just all come and watch and
Well, once
Go
once I get
practice.
all the rest of the herd collared and put together, it'll be sometime then. But like on my other piece here, like these are all alleyways to water, right? So these are pretty tight, these paddocks. So
So they'll be used to moving in kind of a tight, long formation, just with
yeah, and that's what I
water.
find now too. When they're under their own volition, they're fine. I just don't know how you add that extra stimuli of a person or a dog or a quad, and you're actually pushing whether or not they're going to have the same. Like on like the video I showed earlier, obviously like I pushed him into that fence and he turned and went the other way. But if I was trying to push him down that alley, is he just going to get upset and be like, no, I'm turning around and going back where I came from? It's something that'll be interesting to see. I think it'll definitely work. It's just you might not want to take cows that have only been on collars for a week and try to do it.
Yeah, it'll probably be something that smooths out like multi-generationally.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like my herds now, it's 4 years. They don't spend any time away from an electric wire. So even now, if I got to corral my herd up, I can just use a geared reel and go walk a dead line behind them. And as soon as that dead line hits their butt, they're jumping. Even though there's no power there, they're so
Mhm.
trained to respond to that wire. And I think ultimately it'll come the same with that beep. When they hear it, they'll know they got to move straight away.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's very interesting too, because I think that's often overlooked. The muscle memory that they have is that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's even like we were talking about with the backstop fence of a single line. Um, a herd trained to an electric fence isn't going to go farther. They don't want to encounter that.
No. And they're like I know I showed it earlier. Like once, right now the other downside is I think we were only allowed to have one exclusion zone within virtual paddocks. I'm hoping they develop options to have multiple exclusion zones within a virtual paddock, because those exclusion zones can be so powerful. Whether or not you want to keep them out of dugouts, you want to keep them out of riparian areas in terms of ecological standpoint, or the way I do it is I've got a pile of bales in the corner that I don't want you to touch. Like I'm gonna fence it out. And then it was funny because when we first started doing it, I realized I was like, all my gates are open. I have no fence around this bale stack. My chores is driving with nobody opening a gate. I lift a bale out, I back it up 5 feet, and I set it down on the ground. And I drive away. Not a gate to open, not a fence to drop. It was pretty neat. So
That's awesome. We had a conversation, Axel and I had a conversation kind of in the infancy of our building a relationship with the East Shepherd. And it was one of the people that had originally, one of the engineers who had originally worked on the technology before it was even East Shepherd. And we were like, okay, why is there only one exclusion zone? Like, we want lots. And he was like, well, again, like we had a really good explanation of why. And he was like, okay, same thing, kind of like back to the battery life, that people were getting confused. Like people were
yeah,
getting all these exclusion zones that they didn't need and getting confused. And then I explained, like, we have a customer that has like 57 species at risk on their range. and how they need to manage for that. And he's like, okay, like, like, okay, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And he said, like, let's think about that. Let's think about how we can design it. Or maybe not everybody has access to some of these things, right? Or that's not where you start.
Yeah.
You don't start from day one trying to make 120 exclusion zones. But maybe someone does. So anyway, we had a very good conversation about that. And I definitely know that he saw the benefit from a different perspective. Again, like, just different culture, different continent, different everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm very hopeful on that too, that we can have more options or unlock, or someone can unlock that for us. So hopefully,
Well,
fingers
and
crossed.
that was the thing, like with this, like there's like eShepherd's not the only person in this market right now. There's other brands, and I
Yeah.
researched the other ones, and they have different models. But where at least for myself, where it came to with Gallagher was the, it sounds preachy, but the whole history of electric fence. We kind of live in the Gallagher ecosystem on our like our weigh scales and our scanners and our fencing equipment, and it's just all those pieces they've done such a good job with that they're taking electric fencing, and I think they're probably ahead of a lot of it in terms of just experience. Because I'm not exactly sure the history of the technology, but the eShepherd technology, I first heard about it about 5 years ago being tested, and it's been in this for a long time, and Gallagher has the resources to take it to the next level. So
Yes, because it started as, I can't remember. Anyways, but it started as a different company that
yeah,
Gallagher, bought out,
yeah,
and
that's right.
still retained some of the engineers and some of the original people. So when I found out that too, I was like, ooh, that even makes it better, right? They just had
Yeah.
the resources, like you said, and the money to take it and expand with it, which yeah, we like that part too. So so yeah, does anybody else have any questions? Or Julia, did that answer your question? We kind of got
Yeah,
off on a tangent.
yeah, I'm really curious. I have very mixed feelings, as you know, about this because I like my cowboy job security. So I don't want to get replaced, but I definitely see a lot of potential for it, especially like on the range, blocking them out of areas we really don't want them to go and moving them around. And so I'm glad to have folks like Keegan being curious and trying things,
Yeah, I
being
agree. Like it
early
it
adopters.
expanded. Yeah, yes. Like it expanded my mindset too. Like what I started out thinking with virtual fence has just expanded and expanded to more and more.
Well, and I had a colleague tell me when, like, we were talking about this is specific to bale grazing, but we were chatting about it, and he said he kind of used the example that it makes you a more conscious manager though, because when you're going out there, you're actively looking for what you should be looking for as a producer and as a manager without the worry of, or I want to don't even want to say about the worry, without the distraction of another task. So whether or not you're bale grazing or you're feeding with a tractor every day or what you're doing in that situation, he said, like, I jump in my side by side and I go for a drive and I check my cows and I look at manure and I look at condition, I look at feet, and I look at all the things I should be looking for. I'm out there the same amount of time as I used to be when I was feeding every day with a tractor and a bale buster. But the difference is when I was out there, if I noticed something, I addressed it. But my focus was on feeding with a bale buster. So it doesn't eliminate. That was the other thing. And lots of talk to some producers, and they're like, "Well, I'm going to be out there anyways." Of course, absolutely. You still have to be out there with your cows, and you still have to be out there with your herd and manage it. It doesn't eliminate that, but it does just make one step of when I go out to see my cows, I don't have to worry about spending 45 minutes or an hour pulling wire, putting up new wire, figuring out where my grass is. I can just look at my cows, make sure they're doing well. And if I have to make an adjustment, I can just do it from my phone.
Good point.